How's it going, everyone? So it's currently just me. I'm sure we'll get some more in here soon. But today we're going to be talking about Samsung and their updates, and not just Samsung, but other issues that other brands have as well, and how it just affects the entire landscape. So we'll talk about the Sony X95K and how, I initially reviewed that after seeing the QN90B, and seeing the QN90B with its initial firmware looked amazing. But now the new firmware has broken the QN90B. So basically, it just completely repositions where the X95K was, and it just makes this very complicated to try and do recommendations and reviews right now when everything is so scattered and over the place. So, Samsung came out of the gate really strong, and now they're fumbling with these updates. Got Matt and Jushin here. Let me put your little bubble up if it'll let me. So we got FOMO in the comments. So if you haven't seen, FOMO just put out a video about the issues he had with the QN90B. And then we're also going to talk about some other people that have had issues with these updates. But how's it going, Matt?
It's going good.
Okay. So I know you have seen some stuff on the S95B, which, to be fair, is more on the positive side of things, but it does also bring up the issue of it shouldn't have been broken in the first place.
Well, it's like we're going to fix PQ tracking, but we're only going to fix it in one mode.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you have HGIG, you should have the option of HGIG on, accurate, or tone mapping off and let Samsung do what they're going to do. But it's just, I find it really sus that they change the tracking in Filmmaker Mode. They fix the color gamut, apparently. They add 20-point control to Filmmaker Mode. They do all these things. Yet, for me, like, people don't realize this. I'm a huge, huge gamer. Super huge. If Samsung fixed the game mode, I might actually look at purchasing one of those sets. But guess what? They specifically, purposely did not.
See, and my problem is, let's just say next update or the 2 updates from now, maybe they do fix game mode. My problem is they're making too many changes from the start and breaking too many things along the way, and it's so inconsistent that I don't feel comfortable at this point in time recommending any Samsung TV, no matter how good it is, because of I can't tell you 4 months from now what it's going to be like. And the input problem where FOMO, I was talking with him on the phone, and it was like troubleshooting a computer, trying just to get an image to show on the screen. He was going HDMI port to 1, 2, 3, 4, cycling stuff, going through the splitter, not through the splitter, different devices. It's just a complete and utter mess.
I posted that on my community tab. I said, hey, like, S95B looks great, but if I can't connect something to it and have it show up on the screen, meaning turn off the TV, turn it back on, hot swap HDMI, turn the source off, turn the source on, everything, like, how am I going to feel if someone buys a $3,000 65-inch TV, they get it home, and they start having all these issues? You guys have to realize, I worked in TV sales. My least favorite thing in the world is seeing a customer come back to the store, trying to lug this TV out of their car, trying to get the box, having to put up with management, explaining why they're returning it. Mm-hmm. And then I'm there and they come find me and they're like, why did you recommend this TV to me? Because this is broken, that's broken. Why didn't you sell me a better TV? And they think, oh, I spent $3,000 on this. You'd think it would be a good TV. And that's not just Samsung. That's, any type of TV that might have like eARC issues or CEC issues or any issues at all. If you're not aware of that when you're selling it or buying it, it's kind of like buyer beware at that point. It's not
Yep.
It's just not something I see Samsung fixing or is something that is a priority for them.
Yeah. I'm actually going to come back to that comment in just a few minutes. I want to get some of these chats real quick. But I also want to point out this is not a hate on Samsung stream. I'm also going to demonstrate on my G2, watch it try to actually work and make me look bad. But I'm going to show how when I turn on my G2, it doesn't turn on. So it's not just Samsung. There are other problems with everybody. But right now, Samsung has fumbled the most. But let's see. So Troy is thinking of ordering the S95B tomorrow. The good news regarding the S95B is it doesn't seem to be that affected negatively. It just still has the bugs that have been there with the new update. And they did improve Filmmaker Mode with the new update. So that's good. The problem is the QN90B was basically great a month ago, and now it's terrible. So I don't know what the S95B is going to be like in 2 months, 3 months, whatever. If you do buy it, I strongly recommend getting like Total Tech or whatever, some kind of good long warranty with it. So FOMO is listening, and his S95B still looks good after the update, still working. And then I saw right here, Kamar's S95B has input problems where it doesn't read it properly. So again, it's some people are going to have the bugs, some aren't, but it seems at least with the QN90B right now, it's very widespread problems.
Yeah. What's nice is the way that Sammy actually did FOMO's QD OLED in Filmmaker Mode. Since it was a 2-point, that should not really affect the actual calibration before and after, because I know it was still doing a little weird thing with PQ even after calibration. So it actually might look better now. Like I'd love to come back up and see it, FOMO. I'll actually be in LA next Friday.
And that goes into another problem where it's great for an update to fix something and make it better. But whenever it touches anything with picture quality, anyone who has paid to have their TV calibrated now
Yeah.
has to get it rechecked. And
Or tying that back, Value Electronics, think of how many they probably calibrated and QC'd.
yeah.
I'd love to ask D-Nice if he's had any issues with any of the clients seeing things change. I don't think he will, but there's a possibility that that could, especially with how precise and how intricate he is, like if they change things to a point where it messes up his calibration, he's going to be pissed off.
Yeah, and it's like again, I said, what if 2 months from now they decide to change game mode, and game mode is way more lifted than Filmmaker was.
Oh,
That
exactly.
will definitely affect anything that's been done to someone's game mode. And
Yeah.
it's not just Samsung. You know, if HGIG is not right out of the box on these G2s, and you get it calibrated and you get that tone mapping upload done, and then they decide to fix it with an update in a month or two,
Yep.
who's to say that now you're not over tracking instead of under tracking?
Yep. So it's the same with basically any type of TV.
Yeah.
So when we're out in the field, the number one thing that we do is we check for firmware updates before we calibrate.
Yeah. And it's frustrating, not just as a calibrator, but as a reviewer too, because when I get a TV to review, I only have what's in front of me. And, you know, every now and then I can maybe try to rebuy a TV and retest it later on, but it's not really feasible to just buy every TV and keep them sitting around for 6 to 8 months to see how they are over time. You know, the QN90B, I just reviewed it last month and it was great. And now FOMO showing with these new updates, it's terrible. And it's not just FOMO, other people are reporting the same thing. The local dimming on high is broken, the brightness slider doesn't work. And you know, our usual viewer, SD, I'm sure a lot of the usual people here know of him. He has the S95B, still perfectly fine with that, but he's been having a lot of issues with the QN90B and then updated it to, I believe, the 1211. update, and it basically bricked the TV. It was so dim you couldn't see anything. So he gets
Wow.
it swapped today, gets a brand new 75-inch QN90B. It auto updates to 1204,
Now washed out.
and now the local dimming's bugged and the brightness slider doesn't work. And he's fed up. And to the point that he doesn't trust having the S95B, that, like I said, months from now, it could get an update that breaks something. And it's, again, that can happen to any brand, any TV. It just
Yeah.
seems most common with Samsung. And I was talking with Robert Zahn today, and we're talking about this stuff and these updates in Samsung. And Samsung Display is great. You know, they have people who like reach out, and one of them's actually coming to the shootout. They've reached out to me and talked to me about stuff, whatever. Samsung Display, completely separate from Samsung Electronics. Samsung
Right.
Electronics does not care. You tell them
Nope.
there's these problems, they don't care. You tell them that the calibration modes are broken, they don't care. They've been that way for like 5 years.
Yeah. And the thing is, 95% of the public doesn't care either. Like, and
Yeah,
that's
why
the reality
Samsung
of
doesn't.
things.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
still making the money, so what does it matter?
Now, regardless of picture quality, the reason I didn't recommend the S95B were bugs. It was never picture quality. It's always been bugs.
Yeah, people
And
thought I flip-flopped on it, but I didn't. I still think it
yeah.
looks amazing. I just can't live with it, and I can't recommend something that I wouldn't live with.
And then, like with the G2, I know FOMO's G2 had the HGIG bug, and then yours didn't. And I'm guessing that Tech with KG's did. Like, that's an inconsistency as well. And one thing about a good calibrator, and I hate to bring this back to calibration, is that we actually measure things before we calibrate them, because we want to know if there's going to be an issue before and after. Because the one thing you don't want to do is spend hours working on something and then find out that you were in the wrong mode or mess something up. And firmware updates can, especially with things like projectors. Oh, look at that cat. You measure all the modes that you want to calibrate, you pick the best one, you calibrate it, then a firmware comes out and makes that mode worse or a different mode better. So it's very frustrating when it comes to user interface and bugs. And Samsung has never, ever been known for being friendly with calibrators. That maybe long in the past, but not anymore.
Yeah, they're kind of an ongoing joke with calibrators. All right, so let's get a few more comments here. So Gaming Tech's here. How you doing? I saw your video on Halo, so I'm going to check that out myself here soon when I have time. Okay. No issues with the C1. Yeah, at this point, I think the C1's really solid. The few issues that it had were fixed pretty quickly. There's one issue that still remains and carried over to 2022 involving the 22 point with HDR, the bottom half not being adjustable by the user. That is like the only big issue I can think of, and it's not even really that big. It affects very few people, because really you don't even need to mess with those settings. But yeah, I'd say Sony and LG do a pretty good job. I'd say Sony, let's exclude the VRR fiasco, but when it comes to usability of the TV, they're pretty good at not breaking too much stuff, I would say. And then LG, every now and then, has a little thing here and there, but they're usually quick to fix it. What was the thing? Do you remember last year that they broke with an update, and then like within 2 weeks they had the fix out? I can't remember what it was.
LG kind of reminds me of Bungie. Like, they'll add a bunch of really cool new features, and then there'll be a bug that they have to go back and fix, but they fix it relatively quickly. They had a bug with, it had something to do with gaming.
Yeah, I think it was when they added the game bar, they broke something, and it made people not want to get, or it was after a certain build date, and that something happened. But
Oh
anyway,
my gosh,
they
what was
fixed it
it?
fast. It's like, I know, it's like it was a pretty big thing.
Like I said, it didn't last that long, but I want to say it had something to do with brightness or something where, yeah, it was a certain build date.
It was the HDCP issue. That's right.
Yes.
It wouldn't Wouldn't it not go into HDR or something?
Correct. So it was
Yeah.
as if you couldn't enable like the 4K, like the
Hmm.
deep color output. So everything was like lower bit rate or 8-bit color only or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
But again, it got fixed fairly quickly because look how long it took us to try and figure out what it was. So
Yeah.
again, it does remind me of Bungie with their HDR fixes sometimes for Destiny, where it's like, oh, we completely blew out shadows. Okay, now it's fixed. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the problem that I have right now with the QN90B. Like, if the 1204 update broke it and then the 1211 fixed it, it
Mhm.
wouldn't be that big of a deal. Like, it would still be frustrating, but it wouldn't be this where 1204 was out for like a month. 1211 comes out, it's worse. And now we're probably waiting another month for an update that who knows if it will go back to how it was before the 1204 update.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to say. I'm assuming that I think it's going to get fixed fairly quickly. Um, but for me, until they have a product that's more finished out of the box, especially with all the CEC issues that it has, like I just can't. I can't mess with that.
Yeah. So no, the QN90A is not affected, and this is what leads me to believe that it all stems from the new Tizen system. I
Hmm.
think these new models with the new Tizen, that whatever they're doing with the firmware with that new Tizen system, it's just there's got to be a break in the code somewhere that's causing these problems, because it doesn't seem to be on the older models. FOMO has the QN90A. He just showed like it's Plex. It's still what it was, and to talk about the QN90A, it launched in a not so great state. It got better over time, and it's like, to me, I don't like that either. Like, it's nice that it improved, but it should have come out of the gate that way, because you should buy a TV and it shouldn't change image quality wise throughout the life of the TV, to me. Like, it, again, if you get it calibrated, it can mess up the calibration. Whatever you buy on day one, it should be the same at day 365.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for adding small little features with updates, or updating the apps for whatever Netflix adds, things like that. But when it comes to picture quality, I think that needs to come out finished.
Yeah. I agree with that.
How you doing, EJG? Wanted to go with the 85 QN90A over 77 A80J because I'll be in the room with all the lights on. Right now, it's going for 1960 with Samsung discount, but you don't have that. Yeah, I'll be in the room with all the lights on, but your lights are in the ceiling, so I don't. As long as there's nothing hitting the screen directly, I still personally would take the 80J. It works perfectly fine with lights on and around the TV. I mean, no matter what TV it is, I wouldn't want lights hitting the screen. And with the Samsung, if lights hit the screen, it shoots rainbows from the reflection. Yeah, so if you have an S95B, you might, if you like it as it is, you might not want to update anymore. They will probably add some features at some point you'll be missing out on, but at least disconnect it from the internet or turn off the auto updates at the very minimum, and then just keep an eye out for people to really test the updates before you decide to update. Brad, thank you for super chat. Anyone still have a QN85B? Does it have problems too? I believe FOMO is going to pick one up to see if it's affected, because I never had one in the first place. Pretty sure KG doesn't have his anymore, and I haven't seen any comments really because it's just not as popular of a TV. FOMO, thank you for super chat. He says the Sony X95K wins 2022 by default. And yeah, so that's where we come back to my review of the X95K, which some thought was a bit harsh. And I felt that it was fair because I just said, like, compared to the QN90B that I had just reviewed, it was not as good and it cost more money. Now, it's reversed. I mean, it still costs more money, but it's apparently better because the QN90B is broken, and then who knows what it'll look like once it's fixed. And the other issue with the X95K is it appears that there's different panels in the different sizes. So normally with Sony, with the 95 series, you have the 65 doesn't have the extra wide filter, so it was different than the 75 and 85. So I figured, all right, I'll at least go to the 75 this time to give it, to review the one with that filter, since I did the 65 last year with the 95J. Then come to find out, it appears, not confirmed, but it appears that Sony gets 65 and 75-inch VA panels from TCL, and they get their 85-inch panels from AUL. And that could be the main reason that there's such a big difference in what I saw and FOMO saw compared to what Robert and Brian saw on the 85.
Can I just say that's a whole load of crap to be using different panels with the same model number? I think that's a really crappy move by any manufacturer, including LG with like right now, I know we talked about this earlier. Your 83 G2 is basically not even a C2. It's like a C1.
Yeah, it's technically outdated, and it's the most expensive one in the lineup.
Yeah. So like, shame on TV manufacturers for screwing over. Like, I have a 65-inch C1. I've got a WBC panel in mine. And granted, it looks great, but I've calibrated so many 65 C1s that have a WBE panel in it that can go brighter, that have more color gamut. And I'm thinking, well, it's a good thing I got this for half off. Otherwise, I'd feel kind of, shorted. Like, I spent all this money, let's say you buy an 85-inch QN90B because Classy said it was better than the X95K, and then they update a firmware, and now it does this, and you're like, what the hell? Like, I just feel bad for consumers at this point because you don't know what you're getting until someone reviews the product. And then after that product review, things can change, or they reviewed a different version of the product. It's annoying. Like, if you buy a car and the same model can have different types of engines in it and they're all the same price, that's kind of how I feel right now.
Hey, yo.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what they need to do? Just like, I think this would solve all problems with every manufacturer, right? Like, just let us roll back updates or give us the option to go back to day one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a thing, but it doesn't help everything.
No,
like,
but
an update's not going to change my 83 into a EX panel.
Well, yeah, of course. Right. Well, I mean, I think there's just incompetence like everywhere, and I think Samsung's definitely leading the pack with that, and they have been when it comes to firmware updates. Like, the experience that I went through with the Q90T, I think it's pretty well documented. But like, it was a roller coaster.
I'll give you another perfect example. 77 A80J. I was going to buy one. I'm sorry, 65 A80J. I was going to buy one because I thought we had an open box at and it wasn't until I found out that it had the semi-gloss screen versus like an actual gloss screen, like a more of a matte screen, when I realized, why the hell are they using different anti-glare, anti-reflection on different sizes of this panel? I was so mad because I was like, this is a great fit for what I wanted. I'll go Sony. Don't have to worry about running hours of 3D LUTs. It'll do everything I want, blah, blah, blah. Nope. It's like, I really hate that the same exact models can have totally different features depending on size. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Yep. And as FOMO's talking in the chat, like, there's all kinds of size differences with all these different models.
Oh yeah, dude, like what Samsung was the leader in that as well. Like 50-inch would be 60 hertz for a lot of models for the last couple of years. I think like the last 6 or 7 years, they would strip down models that were under 55 inches. From what I remember when I was selling TVs at Best Buy, I had to remind people of that all the time. I was like, wait, it's not the same TV.
Do you remember the 43-inch QN90A?
Yeah, no, yeah, I did a video on that, and that was the most disappointing thing.
Do you know how many of those I sold?
Uh, you sold those?
No, it was the small, like it was the size they needed. Like
Oh,
it
okay,
was the only way they could go.
right. I mean, it's probably not a bad TV.
It's
Like, it's
not
probably
bad,
one.
but
Yeah,
you're still overpaying for
it
compared to what
is.
you get on the other ones.
It is. 60 hertz, not 120 hertz. It's so bad that they downgrade all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so David Wieland ended up getting a 55-inch C1 for, I believe it was for his office, but he's still trying to figure out what to do for his big living room TV. But his is a WBC panel, and it's clean, so that's all that really matters. You get a clean panel, that's great. Like, again, I calibrated a WBC a couple weeks ago that hit 800 nits. I have not seen another C1 hit 800 nits. It was a unicorn,
Yep.
at
You
least
wanna
at
know-
55 inches.
You want to know what the biggest shame is for me right now? And I'm fighting with this because I don't know. I'll let you hit this comment though first.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is another thing. Like, this is exactly what I experienced, and I know Sammy did as well. But some other people said, well, they didn't have issues with the settings. Some people do. Like, it forgets settings, or it will just change settings, or it'll pick whatever setting it wants without actually changing it on, like, visually in the menu.
Mhm.
There's just so many of these little things that just add up and add up and add up and add up.
I haven't dealt with this yet, but I swear that the dynamic tone mapping keeps turning itself on for the LG. Like, I feel like that's what's happening a lot of times. I'll just be watching or comparing footage, and I'm like, I thought I turned that off. So I don't know. I haven't had it happen yet on the S95B, but I have heard other people having that issue. But like, that is annoying to have things happen automatically. But what I was gonna say is, the G2 is fantastic. Like, next to the S95B in most movies, it looks really great. Like, it competes with it fairly well. Everything, movie mode, all that stuff. So anything that's like content that's not gaming, it's fine. But when it's in game mode, I swear it's worse than the C2. I don't know what it is. It's just, it does not look good with highlights, midtones, all that stuff. It just looks really bad in comparison.
See, and that's what's weird is I don't know if it's because I have the 83, and the 83, like, internally, like, even in the service menu, basically just shows it's very similar to last year. So, like, the
Right.
pixel refreshes are every 2,000 hours. They take an hour to do, whereas the new panels are 500 hours and they take 10 minutes. So
Right.
I don't know if maybe internally it's a little bit different being the 83. The but even before calibrating, after calibrating, doesn't matter. The only issue that I had was in Destiny not setting the brightness slider to 1,000 nits, which is what the TV is expecting. So I originally had it at 800 and then 900, and then everything looked too dim. Setting it to 1,000, everything's right. And then everything else that is HGIG that I check, everything on the G2 looks right. And the highlights in HGIG are perfect. Like, that's how it's the brightest in HGIG for the highlights.
Well, you said yours is software restricted, right?
No,
No, I thought the 83s were
83
software
the
restricted.
83C2 is software restricted
Oh,
to
okay.
about 700 nits. The 83G2, it's just what the panel is capable of because it's not the most advanced version of the panel.
Okay.
But yeah, it still is not as bright as what you have. So I don't know if it's because the HGIG is now set to 1,000 nits, and let's say your TV is 930, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It seems that there's under tracking going on, and then it's expecting a higher brightness, but I don't know if they didn't program it right, and it's still looking at like last year when it was 800 nits for HGIG, or what the confusion is. But there's something wrong with HGIG on some of the G2s or certain sizes of the G2 or whatever, but I don't think that it would affect so much the highlights as it would the rest of the image looking dimmer.
Yeah. So it's like when they're side by side, you notice when a TV is just not brighter, right? It's one of those things you'll notice. But when it's a point where you know that TV can get brighter, but you're just not getting that delivered to you.
Yeah.
Like you could see it underperforming. The TV is clearly underperforming.
Yeah, that's exactly what I saw on FOMO's G2. Like I said, I calibrated it out a specific way, but it's something that they'll fix. It just sucks that you have to put it side by side for now and not have the ability to
Yeah.
see it properly.
Yeah. I'll put a note in saying that, you know, it's probably a bug, but
yeah. I mean, the problem is I've seen data on ones that work, like from Classy on the big
Yeah.
one, and then I've seen data on the smaller ones that don't work, which is just a pain in the butt. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like comparing game mode now on an S95B to say filmmaker mode on the S95B,
right.
but then go even dimmer than filmmaker mode on the S95B, and that's where the G2 game mode is right now, and that sucks.
It
That's
does.
no good. And you shouldn't have to spend money on a guy like me to get that fixed. It should work out of the box.
And I think it was today, there's a new update. I haven't done it yet, so maybe try that. Hopefully it helps.
I'll look
I
into
just
it.
haven't seen anything about it yet.
Is it a
Yeah.
USB thing or OTA?
With LG, it usually you're lucky if it goes over the air in the first few days, so you might have to do USB.
Yeah, that's how it is for Samsung as well. Like I think they do that on purpose. I think those companies do that on purpose so that like they spread it out so that if there is an issue that breaks TVs like the QN90B thing, then not everybody's gonna get it. You know, it's just the people that updated via USB. So it's like less people that get affected by it.
Yeah, so to answer this, no 83-inch WRGB OLED up to this point that I'm aware of has the most recent version of these panels. So it's WBE. It still is what LG calls Evo as part of their Evo branding. It's the newest panel that you could have gotten last year. It's just it came out towards the end of the year in the 83-inch size. So they're still using those panels. They're not updated. If you measure the bezel of the 83, it's 8 millimeters, whereas the other sizes are 6 or maybe even 4 millimeters because they've made the subpixels bigger so that they get brighter. This doesn't have that updated subpixel design.
Yeah. So, Matt, you said on your post that the S95B was tracking Filmmaker Mode correctly now, right?
Yeah, so there's been posts on AVS where they've measured before and after,
Okay.
and I think I saw your video. Was that today or yesterday?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, and it doesn't matter what the measurements look like unless they're done properly, which they finally were.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that you can actually see it in real content.
Yeah.
So when you see that difference before and after, that means that it's no longer messing with the APL of the scene. So, you know, like Classy could do 10% measurements and get fairly accurate EOTF.
Mm-hmm.
After the firmware, if there was a change in picture quality and now it looks like it's tracking and then it's measured as it's tracking, that means that yes, the firmware actually addressed Filmmaker Mode and did make significant changes so that you do have an accurate mode for watching HDR movies on that panel.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it sounds like movie mode wasn't really changed, and game mode is similar to movie mode in how it overtracks PQ. Like game mode is very, very bright when it comes to PQ. It overtracks like crazy.
Yeah, movie mode seems to not clip as much anymore.
That's good.
So they must have did something with the tone mapping or something.
Yeah.
Because one thing I noticed with the Filmmaker Mode, in my video, people have to realize that it might look really dim, but it wasn't. It was just that my camera was locked, right?
Yeah.
So in reality, Filmmaker Mode actually looks fantastic now. Like, oh my gosh, it looks really good. And next to the G2, there's times where it gets brighter than the G2, like on the colorful highlights. When they're both like hitting like those white highlights, they're about the same. Honestly.
So now you kind of understand what I saw at FOMO's in that.
Yeah.
You know, they both in the mid parts of the image should look identical, but then the S95B, if it's going that much brighter, you're going to see it in the highlights and the brighter areas of the image and the high APL scenes. It's going to be able to extend further than like a G2, but for overall content, they're going to look very similar.
Yeah, I see that, and I also see something that the G2 does with faces. Like, it seems to either tone map the faces differently or lift something with the faces and color them a certain way. I don't know. It's weird.
See,
Like,
I
so in
think
darker scenes, the faces are red, but then in brighter scenes, the faces are more yellow.
all right, so I think if you're in Filmmaker or even Cinema on the LG, you have all the AI stuff off, it should just give you the source as it's given. Um, Samsung doesn't turn off all of their processing, so if you're seeing a difference comparing to the Samsung, it's probably the Samsung is processing it and resulting in it softening or doing something else. But that said, the skin tones on the LG are going to be a bit redder than what they probably should be without a calibration, just
That's,
because of the oversaturation of red with it.
well,
I, s-
that
I think it's
plus
tone mapping still, the G2 and this, because I do see it looks completely different. Like, to the fact that it looks like it's tone mapped still. Like, I think there's some processing still going on in the G2.
it's possible. So also remember, like different technologies, like a WRGB is going to show those points between red and green, which are yellow and skin tones, all those differently than the
Mhm.
S95. So there's a lot of differences that can be in there, but unless the G2 is fully like calibrated, it's kind of hard to compare.
Right, it is hard to compare, but so the way I was seeing that in the first place is after the update. Of course, this was more pronounced to me, but switching it to movie mode on the S95B gets those faces closer to how the G2 looks.
Okay.
And so I'm guessing the movie mode is tone mapping more, and the filmmaker mode is doing less of it. And I have some footage that I didn't show yet, where I have the S95B before the update and after.
Beautiful.
And a couple of things that you see in it is the faces are less shiny
Yeah.
pre-update, and like they have this like, I don't know, they just have like this different look to it. Like, you could tell there was some big time tone mapping going on in the faces, and
Well,
so
in darker
that's one of the things
scenes,
I
there
noticed.
shouldn't, well, at least on the LG, there shouldn't be any tone mapping, and if it's a darker scene, it wouldn't need to.
Hmm.
And I'll look forward to that video because there's been a lot of yoo-hoos on YouTube saying that the firmware update did nothing. And I've seen charts, videos, comparisons. I've seen tons of evidence. So,
Right.
like, especially if I'm saying it, you know,
Yeah, and like I want to get another S95B to test and update and do more videos on, but on the other hand, I don't want the headache of a TV that is going to be frustrating to use, and basically there's only one place for it to go if I buy it, which is Mrs. Classy's TV replacement that we're still working on. But if it's not changing inputs, or if it's forgetting inputs or doing anything like that, it won't work. It won't work in that room. Like, picture quality wise, it would be great because it's a bright room. So visually it would be fantastic for her, but the quality of life and just usability isn't there for it. And so it's like I'm struggling with the idea of also buying it to review and test now, and then
Hmm.
3 months from now I have no idea what it's going to look like then, and then I have to go through it all again. So
Oh, Matt,
um,
one thing I could do this weekend is I could take it even further. I have a 65-inch S95B that I can leave offline,
yeah,
and I could do a head-to-head.
that'd be fun. Invite me for the stream
Yeah.
because I've got charts. So if we do like a stream yard, I can share like pre and post charts with you too, so you can like show those at the same time.
Cool.
and your A80J will be. I don't think I've ever seen an A80J with gradation preferred not track PQ.
Yep.
Okay.
So
So
that'd be
use
good.
that as your example.
Yep, that'd be good.
All right. So Mighty Wookie is asking about could we explain more about how the calibration can alter with firmware changes? So basically, what's happened with the S95B is you had your PQ line, and it was going over, meaning everything in the midtone was too bright. So depending on how a calibration was done to that TV, now that it's been pushed down, so it's not as bright, your luminance in that mid range is now different than it was before. So as soon as you go messing with luminance, or if there's an update that messes with color, or an update that messes with just about anything involving picture quality, it will have some effect on your calibration.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, I'll give a perfect example. So let's say you have a TV that is too bright, like in actual gamma. So it's like the gamma's not tracking properly. And let's say I fix that, right? Um, Once the manufacturer issues a firmware update and they alter the gamma, all they've done is take my fix and make everything darker than it should be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's overcompensating for what I did. So when I bring it in line and they change it, they make it worse. So that's the tricky part about it.
I see. Yeah, I mean, like, it seems like Samsung is always gloves off when it comes to, like, they just don't care. They'll change the picture quality. Like, that's something that I noticed multiple times on the Q90T, where I would have, like, messed with the ST2084 for game mode. Like, I would bump it down, and then all of a sudden it was, like, higher or lower. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
All right. This is kind of spreading into a video that I was going to work on for the G2, but I'll share some information for now. So David Wieland, we all know, has been through many TVs trying to get a big TV that's clean, and he wants to go with the 83 G2. And so I'm going to share. White is fantastic. There's almost no pink. This is super clean white. And I love the G2, and I love it in 83, even if it is not the quite newest panel, even if it is 800 nits. It looks fantastic 90% of the time. The problem is, as we move darker, this is after break-in, this is after 100 hours, this is after 2 pixel refreshes. So this is, I believe, was this the 10%? Yeah, 10%. And then do you see those horizontal lines? And you see how they go top to bottom, equally spaced?
Yeah.
It's like the Venetian blind, but visible in dark instead of bright areas. So not only are these vertical bars visible in content, the horizontal lines are visible in content. And as I go down to 5%, now you start to see a darkened corner up here and a brightened corner down here. And I go to 4%, and then the uniformity with the brightness gets even worse. And as I go down 3 and then 2, like you just see how it's almost off up here. It's way bright here. So the, at 1%, you just get this glow down here, whereas like the rest of it looks almost off. So
You should just get a 85 QN90B.
Did you see how expensive those QN95Bs are? Oh my god.
I did.
They're crazy. They're crazy. I was like, dang.
So yeah, I for most of the scenes, like, yeah, it's great. But as soon as there's dark scenes, so maybe, I don't know, a couple times an hour, depending on what you're watching, camera panning in a dark scene, it really stands out. I'm giving it up to 200 hours and another pixel refresh, hoping it clears up some more. But it's kind of just disappointing to see that, especially when it's, the flagship model. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna keep giving it a chance, but there's a chance that it might get swapped.
Oh man.
And
Say it ain't so.
Yeah, it's not fun to hang it and whatnot, but
That's like the worst nightmare, dude.
And
switching out
that's-
at 83, like what?
and that's the problem is it's pretty common for the 83s to have these uniformity problems near black. The 77s mostly, I think, are the cleanest. Like on average, I would say the 77s are the cleanest. The 83s seem to be among the worst near black, and then the 65 55s are usually okay, but they have more pink tint.
Yeah, if you get a clean panel, either LCD or OLED in a big size, you hit the lottery.
Let's see. I hate when the chat jumps all the way to the bottom. I absolutely do not regret anything about. I don't want a C2 at 83. That, especially knowing now that they are software restricting the C2 83, I would not get that. Um, but I am considering, if I do end up having to return this, I may just go 77 G2, and it should hopefully be a lot better with the uniformity.
You're gonna end up
And
going 77 A80K now. You're gonna
no,
be back where you started.
no, no. I like the G2 a lot. Like the process. Like I was playing Destiny and I looked up in the sky, 4K 120 HDR at the tower. Destiny is like one of the worst for posterization in the sky, and it was every bit as clean in the sky as the A80J was with the smooth gradation at medium. So the G2 has great gradation control or handling.
Classy, did you see super chats? Because I don't know if you answered
Yeah,
them
I'm
or not.
working my way down there, but the chat keeps jumping and I keep scrolling up and down, up and down. And
Oh,
all right,
okay.
Buddy Love, thank you for the super chat. Did I see LG 48-inch OLED monitor announcement today? That I did not see, but I'm pretty sure they announced that they were going to be doing the monitor versions. What was that, like 4 months ago? Something like that? I did see the MSI QD OLED monitor. Basically, it's the same thing as the Alienware. It's just coming from MSI, which hopefully they're going to put all the controls into one picture mode, and then that would be great. And then if they can fix the near black being way too bright, then that would be a great monitor.
Yeah. Did you hit this one?
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Oh, okay.
So SD is here now, and yeah, he has had really bad luck with these updates on his QN90B.
Right.
Yeah, the local dimming not working. The brightness slider doesn't work. Anyone who's seen any of these newer LCDs with mini LED, once the backlight stops working and you just get that bluish purple glow all over the place,
Right.
it's awful, and it just makes it look like a cheap TV from 8 years ago.
Yep, definitely not intended. I don't even know how that happens. Like, it's so weird. I think it is really weird that they all use the same firmware now. That's not how it was in the past, and I don't know if they're just like combining it all in one file and then spreading it like smartly to the TVs, but there's something with that. I know there has to be.
So Leo here, we all know he loves the QNED 99, and he is not going to give up. He's going to get one, and I wish you all the best, and I hope you get a clean panel, and it's everything you're looking for.
You don't think that's weird, by the way?
Sorry, I missed most of what you said.
Oh, I was saying, like, they're all using the same firmware, the Samsungs.
Oh yeah. So the numbers are the same. I assume because it's Tizen new. What
Right.
are we gonna put a number on it? Is it Tizen?
I think it's 6.5 or something.
Yeah, whatever it is. So the
3.
new Tizen. I don't. Yeah. So the new Tizen system, they probably found a way to implement all the firmware updates to be more universal across the models.
Yeah.
But it's also probably having these growing pains.
Yeah, I mean, just keep your TV offline. Well, not TV, but just like disable auto updates until you see a review on it. That's the best way to do it with Samsungs. I think that's the best way to do it with any TV. Just wait till you look at like consumer reviews or YouTube reviews on firmware.
No, I don't think a C2 would be better because I think just all, like, if I remember right, you did. I believe you tried an 83 last year and had issues with it, and I just don't think they're going to be any different really until they get switched over to full EX or whatever. They get the restructure, and then hopefully it's just not like an assembly line or production thing where the 83s just come out worse. But I would give it some more time at this point to hope that you get a better, cleaner panel in 83, or you might just be turning them around and going through a bunch of them again, trying to get a good one. Yeah, so SD is saying that his S95B currently is fine, but
Yep.
he's has no confidence for it to stay that way. And that's what I was saying earlier. It's like
Take it offline.
if, well, even then, I don't know about the long term
Right.
longevity, and what updates are going to come that might add something you might want.
Well, sure.
So that's another problem.
That's what I'm saying. Take it offline until you see a review. Like that's the safest way to do it.
And that's what I told him is don't update and have an extended warranty on it.
I never get warranties ever. I don't know why.
If you guys want to feel how I feel about firmware updates, let me tell you. I did the engineering update for my C1 when the game bar came out. Do you guys remember when that was? Maybe last year, last October or something, like a long while ago.
Yeah, you sound like you're in a cup.
Oh, really? When you
Yeah,
do
like
the
when
engineering,
you start talking, it's real loud, and then it like keeps bringing your volume down. And
how about this? Is this better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So when you do an engineering update, the firmware numbers are far ahead of the consumer updates. So unless the consumer updates catch up to the engineering updates, you can never, even with the USB method, you cannot update your TV with any of the newest firmware unless they either issue a new engineering firmware update or if consumer update bypasses engineering. So apparently, according to LG, which I called them about this, they will have a consumer update that will bypass. They'll get into the 4 points, whatever, the 4 dot something. But until then, I've been on the same firmware for a long time. So I'm wondering if there's any features or updates or anything that I've missed out on with that update.
Interesting. So is it like when you buy your TV?
This was me wanting to test out the game optimizer bar before it was public.
Oh, okay.
Right, yeah, so I'm roughly the same distance. I'm a little bit closer, maybe like 10 and a half at the most. And to me, 77 is like the minimum. It's enough. It's but I do like the 83. I do feel that difference. And it puts it in just such a hard decision of living with the uniformity problems, or going down a little bit in size to possibly have less uniformity problems. It also helps that there is a huge price difference, and then that the 77 is 15% brighter. At first I thought it was like 8%, but it seems on average they're closer to 13 or 15% brighter realistically. So it definitely is a hard pill to swallow for the amount of money you pay on the 83, to not get the best panel and especially have potentially more uniformity issues. But if you get an 83 and it's clean, then then it's incredible, and I would absolutely do that. In small windows, not that much, but in real content, the G2 is definitely brighter. I would say my 80 was upper sevens in small windows. The G2 is about, let's say, low 800s, but it can definitely get brighter. And the chat just jumped again. That is so annoying. All right. Well, before I get to more comments, let me test something. I want to see if it's gonna work or if it's gonna show what I've been dealing with every day. When I go to turn on my G2, doesn't matter if I do the remote or the power button. So the light goes off, and then it goes back to red, and it doesn't turn on. And now I'll turn on my receiver manually, and then see if it comes on. Nope, nothing's happening. And now if I go get the remote and I hit input, then it turns on.
That's weird. Come on, TV manufacturers. What are you doing?
before I do anything on the LG remote, I'm going to make sure that the shield is on. And on the shield, sometimes I got to press the little white dot button and still nothing. But if I hit input, then it clicks again, and now it's flashing, and it turns on. So for whatever reason, the power button won't turn it on.
Can you resync your remote?
Like I said, I did it manually by pushing the button on the TV.
Oh, okay. But like sometimes you need to resync your remote on LG.
And then the other issue is when it does turn on, it's showing this as the AVR, but it should be showing it as the shield. So as soon as it detects that the shield is there, which takes multiple tries of turning the shield on and off, eventually it will find it, and then it will change it to shield. But like this is LG, CEC, whatever problems that they need to fix as well. So again, it's not just picking on Samsung.
Right.
This is why I have a universal remote and there is no CEC in my whole system.
Smart. Yeah. CEC sucks.
I take that back. I do have CEC, but it's literally just so when I click to a different input on the receiver, it shows the name of the device on the screen for a moment. That's literally all it does. It doesn't control volume, input change, audio return channel, none of it. That's right, guys. I use eARC without CEC. Ask me how.
Nice.
Yeah, my receiver is on shield, but I have to toggle it to something else, toggle it back to shield, and then just keep hitting the white button on the shield. Eventually it will find it, but this is what I struggle with every time I turn it on.
I'd send it back.
Yeah, dude, what the heck?
I have not seen enough of the new panels yet to say. That's more of like a SD Nice question because he sees, a dozen of them a day or whatever when he's doing them. The 65 C2 that I reviewed was very clean. Aside from the pink tint, was moderate. Actually, I wouldn't even say moderate. It was closer to minor.
I mean, what we have to realize is that the panels from the manufacturer are getting cheaper and cheaper. They're getting more and more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And the more efficient they get, they're going to have less binning on them, which means you're going to get consistent quality, but that doesn't mean you're going to get higher quality. And for those that don't know, like Gallery Series, Master Series, all these different panels, they do bin the panels, meaning different manufacturers will be selective on which cuts from the factory they actually take for quality control. So I know it sounds insane, but paying more money for the better panel generally gets you a better panel. That's why I was very upset to see Classy's uniformity not as up to snuff as I usually see on like a Master Series from Sony. So that was weird for me. And it's again why I kind of am recommending the older panels versus the new ones right now.
They're just better deals too, honestly.
Oh yeah. I'll be selling as much as I like it, I'll be selling my C1 here in the coming weeks at a pretty killer deal.
Nice.
We'll see who gets it.
You see my comment about, well, I don't know if you saw it. I commented on your post about the game mode.
Oh yeah, I deleted that one pretty quickly. No.
No, I was like, I'm cool with them fixing it. I just don't want them to touch the game HDR. Like, add another thing, that's cool, but
yeah, like, well, here's what I said. I said what they need to have, just like LG has dynamic tone mapping for game mode, they need to have a proper HGIG mode,
Mhm.
and then they can have whatever mode they want. But as of right now, like game HDR EOTF on the Samsung is insane. Like it's way too bright. But
Yeah.
some people like it.
Yeah, I think it's probably still too bright at -3.
All right, I'm back.
I think Classy, you measured it, right? It's still too bright
Sorry.
at -3.
What?
Game mode?
Oh yeah, wait, it's still way over. There's nothing you can do
Yeah.
for game mode.
It's still the best looking. Still the best looking. I think maybe that changes with the A95K. I can't wait to check that out.
All right, so yeah, there's also a couple other odd things with the G2. I'm gonna do a video on it soon. Just kind of waiting for everything to come together with it and possibly get another size to test to verify. But one of the other things I've mentioned to Matt is kind of odd, but it also seems that it may be done on purpose. But you know, I'll talk about that in the video or later. Just need to check more things. But other than that, like I said, like the G2 is definitely up there. And when it comes to just turning it on, like it's not that big a deal to hit the input button to turn it on, but it's still frustrating and annoying that it is even like that in the first place. It should just turn on when you hit the power button. Maybe if I set it to go home when you turn it on, it might want to do that, but I don't want it to go home. I want it to go to my last input. I want it to turn on the receiver and turn on the last input that I used, just like the Sony did. Like I just hit power on the Sony, everything turned on.
Man. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I had issues with the Sony, with the CEC. You're having issues with the LG. I never had a CEC issue with the LG. It's like so random, man. So random. Everything is buggy. Everything is.
It's so funny. Like I said a long while back about the Sony QD OLED coming out, how everyone's like, "Oh, it's disappointing. It's not going to be as bright. It's not going to be this and that." I'm like, guys, I've already told you. It's Sony. It's going to be accurate. So out of the box, it's going to look like a G2. It's going to look like an A90J. It's not going to look like a Samsung because it's accurate, and people are going to hate it. And I'm just telling you, I'm warning everybody now, don't spend an extra $1,000 on an A95K that you could have spent on like a G2 or a C2 and expect it to be $1,000 better, because it's not.
Well, here's the thing about that also. They're very conservative with how they set their panel, like based on like burn-in and stuff. I don't know why, but you know, they're just
I'm not talking brightness.
No. I'm saying like the fact that it's gonna do that dimming thing still and everything else that people are upset about.
But what I'm saying is, when you have a Samsung in, pre-patch filmmaker mode, or you call it movie mode now, and you put that side by side with a Sony in a custom mode or it's cinema mode or whatever you want, the Samsung will look brighter due to inaccurate PQ tracking. It just is what it is. And people are going to go, oh, well, yeah, it's because the A95K has been gimped and it doesn't get to 1500 nits of brightness and blah, 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 blah. And they're not going to realize that the difference there is the accuracy. It's not the panel. The panel could do just the same as the Samsung if Sony wanted it to, but it's not going to. And people are going to harp on it saying that, oh, Sony's putting, they might have just, stuck with the WRGB. Like, you're going to see it. I'm telling you, it's coming. And it's because they don't know what they're measuring or what to look for. Vincent is probably going to love the A95K.
I'm probably gonna love the A95K. I'm not writing it off. Like, I just know that what you can do with these TVs, like, it's flexible. That's what I like about it. They're usually really flexible.
Yeah, and Samsung, this is just speculation, but I fully expect as the year goes on, S95B will get a little dimmer, a little dimmer, a little dimmer,
I don't know about that.
and so that way it can last longer. Like they'll
I don't
just
know
have
about
it.
that.
I would not put it past them.
I don't know. That seems like it's like one of those theories where people are like, oh, they're messing with the QN90B because the QN95B just got announced, you know, for
No, I
pre-orders
don't
and stuff.
think it
No,
has
I
anything to
know,
do with
but
other
like,
models. I'm just saying, like, they may at some point drop the brightness to make it a little more conservative so that it lasts longer, because they don't want to be hit with, you know, image retention, burn
I'm
in,
just
whatever
saying.
concerns.
I'm just
and
saying
stuff.
you're tiptoeing along those lines right now.
Yeah. Leo, thank you for the super chat. He's thanking us for the good luck with that QNED 99. So from what I understand, FOMO is actually going to see what Samsung is willing to do. So he's going to be contacting Samsung to see what happens when this kind of issue happens. What is Samsung willing to do? Are they going to fix it? Are they going to offer an upgrade? What are they going to do?
They're gonna remove the flaps off their nipples and start going, "Oh."
If you bought it directly from Samsung, they're pretty good. Like they either give you like 10% off or they'll refund it and give you a different TV. I've heard a lot of good success stories out of that. So it doesn't hurt to contact them.
Yeah, I will say out of the manufacturers, for like warranty coverage and things like that, LG and Samsung tend to be much better than Sony.
Don't even deal with Sony when it
You
comes to
can't.
warranties.
You got to deal with
No.
the store.
Oh my God. When I had the X900H and dealing with Sony's support, and they're like, we're going to forward all this off to our engineers, but you're not allowed to talk to the engineers. You can't talk to them directly. We just have to say what you say to them, and then we'll let you know what they say. And no one had any idea what the half resolution issue was when at 120 or any of that, or how the audio drops out at 120 hertz. Like, they wouldn't accept that any of it was Sony's fault. They said that it's operating as intended, and that's it.
When I worked at Geek Squad, and I was on the phone with a Sony rep for about half my shift, and it got nowhere. I was like, oh, this is fun. And I had to do that for a customer. And I'm like, this is a waste of time. I told my manager, I was like, this is a waste of time. So, yeah.
I'm scrolling through chat.
I hear a ton of horror stories, too, like in the forums about it.
So yeah, so as far as LCDs go, now the QN90B in its current state can't be recommended. I guess the X95K is the next best option, but then, you know, its black bars are what they are, and that's that's what Sony wants. They don't want to risk any loss of detail anywhere, so they will not risk, crushing out dark detail or anything that is near the black bars. So that's why they let them get raised.
Yeah.
And
Master backlight my ass.
I guess you could just get a X95J or get the QN90B, keep it offline.
At this point, I might just say just go for the QN90A if you have to get an LCD. I mean, especially at the prices they're at right now.
The price is really cheap. Good. Yeah. And the only issue with it really is just like there's a couple of things that will probably bug you about it, like the actual highlights themselves, the smaller highlights, they're not going to get nearly as bright as what the QN90B can do. But overall, it's not a bad TV. I know you didn't like it as much as I did, but I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, when I got the second QN90A to re-review, and then I got the B after it, it was definitely better than it was the first time that I had it. But the B just was so much better.
Yeah.
And it's like, Samsung, how could you drop the ball so hard? You had the LCD crown like completely locked and solid, and now it's not looking good at all.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was intentional. I'm pretty sure they're going to have an update to fix it fairly quickly. They do more updates than any other thing, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. You know, it's a bad thing because they can break stuff.
I think they just rely on updates too much, And then that's why they're like, all right, we're just going to update. And then it's fix this, break that, fix this. And there's no consistency. And, you know, I
That's
just want to be able
fair.
to recommend something that's going to be consistent and work.
That's fair. But like LG is kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah, like I said, there's definitely some issues and problems on LG side. I think Sony, while they do have their own ways of doing things that I don't agree with, it does seem that they are more conservative with trying not to break things and taking their time more on things.
Yeah, they'll like
They
with
definitely
all
take
of
their
this
time.
stuff.
They definitely take their time.
They will take their sweet
2 years for VRR.
sweet ass time for stuff. Yeah.
How long did it take the 900H to finally get fixed?
Yeah, about 2 years, and
It's
then,
not fixed.
No, they
It
broke.
is still not fixed.
They
yet.
broke when the VRR update came out, or actually no, I think it was before that. They broke 24 hertz, and then they just fixed that. But there's still other problems, and VRR is just basically not usable on any of the LCDs. It's fine on the OLEDs, but
can we hit this real quick? QN98 has bad DSE. That's just a panel to panel thing. Like, you either get lucky or you don't.
yeah, the 90B that I had a line straight down the middle.
Yeah.
Oof.
I think mine had like a cross, same as last year.
Mine didn't even make it into my house. That's how bad the DSE was.
All right, Kamar, thank you for the super chat. Got the 77-inch G2 and prefer it over my S95B 65. I have the input bug on the S95B, which is annoying. The G2 is calibrated and looks like my A90J.
Love it.
Yeah, as I say, is the A90J also calibrated? Because I mean, it should. In just about, I don't know, most or all content, it'll look pretty close, very similar to the A90J if both of them are calibrated, or if the A90J happened to be a good one out of the box and is pretty close. But yeah, 77 G2 definitely looks to be very well-rounded. Just got to see about the HGIG on that size.
Yeah, as long as you're not gaming, I can recommend the G2 right now. But if you're gaming, it's tough to recommend the G2 because the C2 was better with gaming, like significantly better.
Was the jump from 77 to 83 that noticeable? So basically, if you just imagine like this much around the entire screen getting taken away, that's the difference. So it's noticeable, but it's not earth-shattering. To me, I feel like you have to go 2 jumps in sizes to get that really wow factor. So if you're at a 65 and you go 83, then it's a big wow. If you go 65 to 77, it's nice. It's definitely a big jump, but it's not the like earth-shattering jump. Or if you're at 55, you should go 77 instead of 65.
Yeah, I agree. Like going from 65 to 77, I was expecting like a huge jump, and I was like, it's not as big as I thought. It was still nice, but it was, you know.
And if you have a
especially
77,
over time, you can't go back down though. That's the problem.
No, you can't.
83 to 77 maybe, but that's good.
If you have a 77, your only option is going to be 98 or 97 inch. That's the only way you can go. Do not pass go. None of this 85 crap. You need to go 97.
Yeah,
I think
I won't be doing
77
that.
is like the sweet spot for value too.
Oh yeah,
because you got to pay so much extra for that 16% more screen with the 83. All right, Paul, thank you for super chat. Any idea why the 55 C2 is now $2,000 at LG and Best Buy? I don't pay attention to 55-inch prices too much, so I know
I can
that
tell you.
Best Buy, you have to have the Total Tech membership to get the $200 off to get it at what, $1,800.
Yep.
LG. So is 2,000 MSRP or is 2,000 a new price?
No. So I don't even know what Best Buy is doing here, but it's like total shenanigans. So it's $17.99 everywhere else, but at on Best Buy it's 2,000, and then you get the $17.99 price if you have Total Tech. I don't know why they're doing this, but it's shady as hell.
So
Yeah,
you spend $200 and you save $200.
Yeah.
It's like you're getting it.
Or
You're getting total tech for free.
And I know how shady they can be, so I'm not
Or
surprised.
for the same money, Vic says you can get an 85 QN90A. That's a 30-inch different size.
Dang, where can you get that? That's a really good deal. I would totally get that.
Yeah, that's the same price I paid for that 85-inch X900H.
Yeah, go get that. Like, if you guys are looking for an 85-inch TV, just get that. Like, that's insane. That's a really good deal. Just throw some ambient light on, you'll be fine. Like, honestly, it's fine in a dark room either way, but yeah. So it does look like the difference between the 95B and the 90B is just the processing and then like design changes.
That's what I was expecting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all the different sizes of the 90B, if they get that update, it's not looking so hot. What I want to know is, does the 900B suffer from this as well?
Doesn't look like it. It looks like the AK has different firmware.
Hopefully they don't mess that one up, because that's an expensive TV right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm scrolling chat and then it just jumps like 20 messages at once. So frustrating.
First world problems.
I would say that is a bit crazy, yeah, considering the just huge price difference.
That's wildly, yeah. That's insane.
If you're gonna do that, don't do that.
Yeah, wait till next year. You'll have a QD OLED 77-inch. That
You could make like a wall of cutie OLEDs right now.
Just because I believe that's 20,000 or more.
yeah, and don't they have to like hand deliver it and set it up for you?
I don't know.
I think
Do you
that's
know
what's-
how to
or
make
I think it might
walls?
be the 88. For
The
sure. I
88,
think
yes, the
the
88
77, I
comes.
forget.
The 88 comes in a crate. You know how I know this? I sold one.
Yeah.
Nice. Hey Matt, do you know how to make like a wall, a TV wall out of like regular consumer TVs, like to make them connect?
I know how it works, but I wouldn't be able to install it myself. No.
Ah, okay. I was always wondering that.
I have seen a wall like the Samsung wall in a customer's home before, but I wasn't. This is what wasn't during calibration days. So
Yeah, like a wall with the infinity bezel would be kind of sick.
it
Yeah.
it would no, you would hate it. And
Really?
I'll tell you why at some point, but yeah,
Okay.
you would hate it.
Yeah, I know. Being somebody who used to have a 3-monitor array where I debezeled them and put them together, even that, no, I wouldn't. No,
The
not doing that again.
the uniformity differences is why you have to laser align things like that, because the slightest off angle differences will ruin the effect for you, and that's why those have to be professionally installed.
That makes sense.
So, anyone here that hasn't seen it yet, FOMO just before this stream put out a video showing the problem with the QN90B with the new updates. So both the 1204 and 1211, I believe it was, they're both bad. And he showed how they looked before and after, because he did a stream when he got it, and like when he got the TV, before it updated anything, he saw what KG and I saw.
Yeah.
Where
He liked it a lot.
dark scenes were much improved over the 90A, and it was the best LCD. Now with the new update, it's terrible, like just absolutely terrible. And again, it's another situation like, should I go buy one and re-review it? But then if I do that and they fix it in
Yeah.
2 months, then I would have to do it again. And like, this is the problem going forward with reviews now. One, we all have to be absolutely clear on what firmware
Mhm.
we used when we reviewed it. Um, Especially if we do multiple firmwares, definitely check for differences between them. Um, but even then, it's just hard to say because, like I said, the X95K felt not too great after just seeing the 90B,
Mhm.
and it costing more money. And now, if I had the 90B with the 1204 update and it wasn't that great, and then saw the 95K, it probably would have looked better and beat it, and it would have been a completely different situation. It's just screwing up the reviews entirely.
Yeah.
Could you imagine release a TV, get fantastic reviews, then screw up the TV? Like, well, already got the good reviews. It's all good.
Yeah,
So
and it
maybe it has something to do with this because there's some people on 1211 that aren't affected. So I don't know if there's like residual effects from the old update that didn't get fixed. Like somebody applied the 1205, maybe that broke it, and then 1211 never fixed that. I don't know if that's a thing, but that's something that could have happened. But I would think like if you went, I wouldn't go buy that TV again, Classy, because by the time you buy it, it probably will be fixed. I think like whenever they break something this bad, there's usually a follow up.
well, here's the thing though. 1204 is what breaks it,
Yeah,
and then nothing's fixed it since. And there's been one or two updates since. It's been over a month, so I don't know. Um,
yeah,
and the problem is when you open it and it says there's an update, it's doing the 1204. It's not doing a newer one.
right.
So
Yeah, it's really weird.
I never really expected the A95K to be brighter than the S95B. I don't think it's a big deal because even though the S95B hits 1500 nits in small windows, the amount of content that's going to be such a low APL for it to go over 1,000, you almost never would see it. It's not like you're looking at a normal scene and there's even a light that it could do that on, because those small windows are only when the rest of the screen is black when it hits 1500 nits. So if you have, say, 50% APL and it's like an outdoor scene and it's a small highlight, it's going to be much less than 1500 nits. So that whole difference with the brightness with the A95K isn't that much. It's realistically like 1050 versus 950. And so that 100 nits difference, I mean, if they're side by side, you'll see it, but in real content, just buying them, even if they're in different rooms, you won't see it.
The heatsink's gonna help a lot.
I, I think it'll help with longevity.
Well, like I can see the
but-
G2 why that works. Like there's a lot of scenes where it's actually competing quite well with the S95B. And I think that's because of the heatsink, because the C2 got nowhere close to that.
Well, yeah, but the S95B doesn't really need the heatsink, as it's showing like it gets brighter. So, there's a
But-
difference because the heatsink is helping the WRGB OLED, whereas it just seems like a cautionary thing on the QD OLED. But we'll see.
Yeah. But like if the TV so called gets tired out or whatever, wouldn't it help with that? Like avoid that from happening?
It's
does-
only there to dissipate heat, meaning it allows the pixels to, one, if they can get cooled down more efficiently, it means they can be pushed harder.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean necessarily brighter, but it means that the panel, like the pixel switching from like super bright to off or on or whatever, can occur more quickly because the heat can leave the panel more quickly.
So you could have a more relaxed ABL like that?
It's not so much that. Like imagine a full white screen that goes immediately to black. Since those pixels aren't being sustained with heat, because that's your number one enemy on the OLED,
Right.
is heat. It allows for quicker transitions. So that's going to lead to a lot of things like color purity, better contrast, less trailing. Like there's tons of little things that a heatsink will do. Longevity isn't my biggest concern. Longevity is typically fixed with the newer WBE and the EX panels that have the better element for the blue phosphor. That is what's helping the longevity, not necessarily the heatsink.
Yeah. So do you think you'll be able to see it compared to S95B? Like, do you think you'll see that heatsink come up where it's helping?
From what I saw, I don't think it's something that you can visibly like notice. You'd have to like run test patterns to see the differences.
Right.
But like the differences there are subtle. But that's the thing. Like when you see an A90J versus an A80J,
Yeah.
you're not quite sure. It's that one little thing that you can't put your finger on. Like, why does that look so much cleaner and better?
Yes.
It's most likely the heat sink allowing it to push certain elements brighter, but then transition to a darker scene and not have any image retention. Little things like that just make the picture look more real.
Yeah. I noticed the A90J, A80J a lot on some of the highlights. Like that's where it really made a difference for me. Like I felt like that is where it separated itself from the A80J. So I don't know. I wonder if we're going to see the same thing. That's going to be a fun side-by-side, tell you that.
Kumar, thank you again for another super chat. The A90J was not calibrated, but the panel was clean. So, all right. And his calibrated G2, he said, looked a lot like it. So. And this chat. All right. So, and then Morgan, thank you for super chat. You've had time to review the S95B. Would you recommend this for gaming and Netflix watching over the G2 77? Never had an OLED, not sure which to get. Now, I would get the 77.
Yeah.
And maybe you might have an HGIG bug with gaming. Maybe not. It's not going to look bad. It just may not be as bright as it should be, but I imagine that will get fixed. And worst case, you just might have to use dynamic tone mapping for a little bit until it's fixed. But really, it shouldn't be an issue. And
it depends on
how
much
size.
Gaming, dude. It really depends how much gaming. Because if you're somebody who games a lot, the G2 is gonna let you down. It's like you will. It is something you will notice. You don't have it. I don't think you have it on yours, Classy, but it's something you'll notice. You will like notice it.
I'm just saying, like, even if you have to use dynamic tone mapping or something for a little bit,
sure. You could.
It would be a problem.
Yeah, if you're fine with dynamic tone mapping on, you can definitely do it.
And especially if you get it calibrated, then it's a non-issue.
Well, Matt, you said you calibrated yours out, or you calibrated somebody's out, right? And I
thought
Matt. Okay, and he had that issue.
Yeah, HGIG, like you'll hear me on stream, was like specifically under tracking. So it's not a technology issue. It's not like the QD OLED is inherently brighter than the WRGB. And I said this before, it's the fact that since Samsung is cheating and not tracking EOTF, you have to use something like dynamic tone mapping to even compare, because the G2, once it's calibrated and tracks PQ, looks amazing.
Right.
It looks like what you're experiencing with Filmmaker Mode on the Samsung, but imagine that for like gaming, where it looks accurate. But as of right now, the only way to fix it is if I upload a custom tone map into your TV with HDR tone mapping off. That actually fixed it on FOMOs. Classy with his 83, it is working. So what we need to do is contact LG. Like I'll contact my guy there and see if he knows about it. If they're using different chipsets or software, or what the difference is, because I'm sure there's a firmware coming for it. So that's why it's hard for me to not recommend the G2, because I know the fix is going to be there, and I know what it looks like when the fix is there. And just overall, if you're comparing a 65 to a 77, I have to go 77.
Yeah, but
and
I
the
would say if you're
difference.
gaming a lot, just get a C2 though. Like right now,
Uh,
until they
See,
fix it.
the other thing is the G2 is under tracking with HGIG, but it's only under tracking, a little bit. But then you have the S95B over tracking a lot. So when you're comparing the two side by side, you have the S95B looking way too bright, and then the G2 just a little bit not as bright as it should.
But I'm
That
saying,
and
even
And it
on
just makes
on
the
its
difference
own,
worse.
like if you just have the G2 on, it is super noticeable. Like it is noticeable.
right. That's based on your impressions with essentially what I would call like a bug.
Yeah, right.
If the one reason I say if money's a non-issue and you're looking at like the best gaming TV for HGIG, the G2 you are now allowing it to have 1,000 nit for the tone map for HGIG, which is going to take full advantage of the panel. It now means that your sliders in games are no longer neutered down to 800 nits like it would be like on a C2, and you can set that higher peak brightness and take advantage of it. So I don't know how much longer you'll have the G2, but if the firmware update comes out, like you'll see the difference. Like it's very noticeable.
Yeah.
All right, so Michael, thank you for the super chat. Not scared pulling the trigger on an 85 QN90B and just not updating it. When people eventually start getting good updates, you get it online. So, yeah, I don't think that there was really anything added that would be worthwhile. So, if you get a new one, I'll just set it up as a dumb TV because Tizen sucks anyway. Use whatever media streaming device you have, and just leave it that way until someone says the coast is clear.
Yeah.
That does not do over-the-air updates, though, correct? Like if you have an antenna or whatever.
No,
Okay.
it would have to be online. So the TPC and GSR can still be disabled in the service menu. Where's my remote here? I can show you if it turns on. Hold on, but
Get this man a
hey,
Logitech.
there we go. It turned on that time. It just says nothing connected, but it at least turned on that time. Interesting. All right, now, what's it doing? Okay, it's loading something.
Did this happen before or after? You didn't update, right?
No, I still need to do the new
Okay.
update, so hopefully this gets fixed or something. But it was loading something and then just went to this. I don't know what it's doing. Oh, your TV's been updated. That's why. Okay.
Oh no.
So
Okay.
it just
Uh-oh.
updated itself. Maybe it fixed itself. All right.
I hope mine don't auto update because I want to make sure I do a before and after video.
Yeah, I was gonna take some measurements before and after. Oh well. All right. So anyway, with your service menu remote, you do the in start, and you can see I cut off the in stop button. So 0413, you go down to number 12, which is OLED, and then TPC enable is at the top. You want that to go to off, and then GSR enable is at the bottom. You want that to go to off, and then that's how you disable the ASBL. And also, even if you have the logo dimming turned off in the user menu, when you're playing games, turning this stuff off will make your highlights stay bright in games. If these are at the default setting of on, then you will lose highlight brightness when playing games.
Man, I disagree with this. Game bars are not pointless. I think they're really cool. It's not about seeing your FPS. It's just about giving you different options within the game mode. Like that, yes, give me more of that.
I turned mine off.
No, but I
I
mean, don't you like the functionality that you get? Like
No,
all the
I
extra
don't
stuff
use
that
it.
you can have?
I don't.
I
use
know
it, but I
you
get why
don't
some
use
people
it,
do.
but
I get why some people like to have it, but I
Right.
just personally don't use it.
It's nice. Like if you want to have different black and white level settings for different games, that's cool and all.
Mhm.
But for me, if I want to like go to my settings and I hit the settings button and the game bar pops up, it pisses me off.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be cool if I clicked in on the remote, if that would bring up the game bar. But I hate that I hit settings and it's like game bar and I instinctively start hitting buttons and now it's switching my game genres. I'm like, nope.
So it's
Disable.
on the S95B. What you do is you hold the play button and the game bar pops up. So like,
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's pretty cool. I think. Like, I agree with the LG settings thing because that is kind of annoying.
How do you switch inputs on the S95B?
It's kind of annoying.
Oh,
You
yeah,
have to
old
press
remote
the.
from 10 years ago.
Yeah, they should address that. I hope.
Should you cancel your QN90B order? If you're fine getting it and then leaving it offline, and do what I just said to the previous comment about get a, I don't know, a Fire Stick or a Shield or an Apple TV or whatever, use that for your content, and just leave it disconnected from the internet, you should be good.
Do you realize that depending on how new this model is, and if it is newly manufactured, they could be leaving the factory with 1204 or later firmware updates. So just
Yeah, that's the
do
problem.
you realize you are risking that you can't roll it back.
Yeah, FOMO just got his from Samsung Direct, so I think right now it should hopefully
Should be
be
fine.
okay.
Yeah.
But next week, I don't know. I'd hold off.
They typically don't do it that fast though.
And I've seen some TVs where I've left it's connected to the internet, like it's on Wi-Fi or whatever.
Right.
Even with auto updates off.
Oh, sometimes it does it by itself.
You'll turn it on and be like, hey, your TV was updated.
Yeah.
Hey, check these notifications. We added this, we added that. I'm like, you mother.
Yeah, that does happen. I've had that happen before.
Here to move on from a 930E, terrible CEC issues, return the X95K due to poor value below par blooming. QN90B is a no-go due to this issue. Got 2 bent S95B panels. Looks like the G2 might be the only option. It definitely seems like the best alternative option there, unless you want to save money with a C2, depending on how you use it and what you watch.
Yep, and if you go C2, you might as well go C1, save even more money.
And don't forget, there's still Sony A90J, Sony A80J. There's still there's a ton of options.
Yeah, and the A80K, it should be just a slightly brighter A80J, but at 77 inches, you get the same semi-gloss coating that's on the smaller A80Js, which if you're in a room with lights hitting the screen at all, then that would be helpful. Otherwise, I would just stick to the A80J 77. But I will say I like the G2 more than the A80J.
I mean, I would say it's a better TV, technology-wise.
Yeah, I mean, you got to pay extra for it, but I mean, the A80J of 77 is a fantastic value.
It's ridiculous. Well,
it's $25.99 at Costco online right now. No, it is right now.
Oh, nice. Okay, it dropped again. That's good.
Yeah.
I was gonna say because it was $25.99, and I saw Best Buy upped it to $27.99, and on that same day, the C2 or the C1 dropped to $25.99. I was like, what are they taking turns? Like it's really weird.
I'm trying to remember if I've been in the service menu of a C10, but yeah, I think the service menu is the same, right?
It is. I've done tons of C10s. They're pretty much identical. The only difference now on the new models, the 2s, is just that you can't really see
the OLED module.
Yeah, the OLED module stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have we confirmed? Like, have you checked on a C2 Classy if they have the ability to edit the G1 hack where you could actually change?
That line is gone.
None of that works anymore.
Yeah, it's gone.
Dang.
No more cheating. They can only
don't do this.
Thank you for the super chat, Samuel. How's it going, Max? I'm curious, do you still have the 800B?
No.
And have you had any issues?
Yes.
He doesn't have it.
Okay, I saw he just put out a video with it, so I didn't know if that was older shot a while ago or if he got it again.
Nah, he's got a new camera. He got the A7 IV or A7. What is it called? Is it the A7 IV? Is that what that is?
Yeah, what I have.
Okay, yeah. Everybody's got the A7 IV, but me.
you're not really out of the loop. So you can watch FOMO's video that just came out 2 hours ago, and it's just showing the issues with Samsung updates on the QN90B, and we will find out from somebody at some point if the 85B also suffers. I'm trying to think, are any of the other new Tizen LCDs out that aren't 8K? Or is that it that we have to worry about for now?
Just the 85B and the 90B.
Oh, $24.99 in store for an A80J77.
Damn.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and if you're like SD and you're really unlucky, then the TV just stops working.
I mean, TV's gonna TV. Like it is what it is. Like I hate seeing people spend good money on TVs and then have issues and have to take it back. And then the one thing that drives me nuts too is like sometimes people take it back and they'll get a different model TV and they'll have a different issue. It's just like,
yeah,
I see it happen way too much. I really wish. I'm glad that Value Electronics does their QC. Like regardless of calibration, I know you have to get it calibrated to get the full QC. But that's a really nice service. I think that's well worth it, especially if you're having it shipped and you got to worry about mounting it on your wall. Classy. And then you got to worry about sending it back. I mean, that's a nice feature to have.
Yeah. Did you get that QC, Classy?
No.
He's like, I'll calibrate it myself.
Yeah, because that's why I'm going to calibrate it myself, but maybe I should just get it for the QC part.
No, you have to get both. D-Nice is like sitting there chuckling like, I'm going to calibrate that thing so freaking
No,
hard.
I should do it. I should have D-Nice do 3 white points, do D65, his white point, and my white point with his meter, and then let me measure with my meter when I get it and compare.
Nope. He's going to do it exactly the way he wants to do it, and you're going to like it, and you're going to take it. He's going to lock it, too. He's going to put all the modes into, like, you can't even touch it. You're going to be like, this is how it is. He's like the soup, of, like, TV calibration. I don't want to demonetize your stream, Classy.
All right. So only got a couple more minutes. I got to run back to work. If you have any last minute questions, let me know. At this point, it's kind of up in the air going forward about the best way to even do reviews now, especially with all the other stuff going on about initial impressions versus waiting to do an actual review and everything. So I'm kind of leaning towards stick to a stream that either gets put to members only or just removed when a new TV comes out, and I do like initial impressions on the stream for the people who like that, and then follow that up in the next day or two with a short recap video over some initial findings, and then work on a review that comes a week, 2 weeks, however much long later. But as far as having to do all this stuff with waiting on updates or reviewing it in one state and then it gets updated after, that's kind of up in the air. Because I don't think there's any real way that most of us will be able to hang on to 6 TVs or more every year for months and months.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, man, because I don't know, maybe we just have to have like a disclaimer rolling on the bottom the whole time when we check out TVs for the first time, like on a stream, because it's just our initial impressions. I think like that's how it needs to be taken, as first impressions.
Yeah. If it's a review, just do what Tio does and say, as of today's date, on this firmware, here's the issue. That way when people watch the video, they'll be like, oh, as of blah, blah, blah.
Right. Hey, can you share that where you saw the S95B tracking, just so I can timestamp it and link it?
In FOMO's stream?
No, in this stream. Can you just like
he didn't
share it?
Show that chart in the stream.
I didn't share nothing.
Oh no, can you though? So I can timestamp it and link it.
Oh, I don't even have it with me. Like I'd have to download it and organize. Yeah, I'm gonna save it for the stream that you do.
Okay.
So double R, I was in New York doing calibrations and got sick. But yes, I had gotten a new bird for him, a rooster, and I was gonna give it to him when I went to calibrate his TVs and do video and stuff with him. But because I got sick, I didn't want to stick around, so I just dropped the bird and left and rescheduled. So my next trip to New York, I'll be going and doing the video and calibrations of his TVs.
It's nice. I like birds. And I also like relaxing my shoulders.
He does. He really
So-
does.
When it comes to dynamic tone mapping, HGIG, and off, basically, if it's calibrated, off should look like the highlights in off pretty much look similar to dynamic tone mapping on, but without all the midtones being raised. And then HGIG should look like off, except that the highlights are showing more detail. So, like if there's a sun on HGIG, the sun will be smaller because it's cutting out like the edge around it, showing the detail around that sun. Whereas off will let it, depending on how the roll off was set, it'll clip or whatever it'll do.
Well,
So, like I can show where HGIG, the highlights get slightly brighter, but it's also kind of hard to tell because it's just showing more detail at the same time, and it's only like the center of the highlights get brighter, and so you see.
I mean,
more
let's back this up real quick because the bug that I saw might be affecting the 77s as well.
Mhm.
Because now I don't know what D-Nice did for calibration on the game mode. I know that's extra. But let's say he did either a 2-point or let's say he did a full HDR calibration for game mode. I have no idea which way he did, right? When you calibrate the LGs, you're basically targeting a 2.2 gamma curve before it gets to the PQ processing block, which is one of the first blocks on the LG TVs, right?
Mm.
Depending on what D-Nice did, so I can't speak for him, if it has the bug, then HGIG is going to look dimmer than HGIG off, like dynamic
in the
tone mapping
midtones
off.
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
No, for the whole thing, like
The whole thing. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, so
except for
for
the
me-
except for the peak brightness, but the overall image will look dimmer.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Even on mine, HGIG APL is slightly lower than off, but the highlights are slightly brighter and more defined with HGIG on.
Right. Well, yours was tracking. The one I
Yeah.
saw at FOMO's was severely under tracking. So my recommendation for this is if it's calibrated, don't mess up the calibration by like hitting reset or doing anything like that. In the meantime, I would use dynamic tone mapping.
You have to. Like you
Just-
literally have to.
Just
Or
in
it,
the meantime, that's what I would do. And I
Yeah.
would, like
You have
like
to.
turn on like HGIG, do your sliders on the PS5, and then turn on dynamic tone mapping until the firmware comes out because they're gonna fix it.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of like a workaround to get around like the downsides to dynamic tone mapping, but I can't quite figure it out. I was thinking of like messing with the black and white points to just try to offset it somehow, but I don't know.
No.
Like there's no way, right? There's no way around it.
There's no way around it. So the
Yeah.
only way you could do it is dynamic tone mapping for things that you think look too dim, and then for dynamic tone mapping off, you'd have to set the PS5 to like 4,000 nits.
Mm.
Yeah.
You want to know what's interesting though? In Destiny, if dynamic tone mapping is on, everything looks blown out. But if you go to the
Yep.
brightness slider, you slide it all the way down to 500,
Mhm.
then it looks just like dynamic tone mapping off when it's at 1,000. It's like if
Crazy.
dynamic tone mapping off, you set the slider to 1,000, it looks like dynamic tone mapping on if the slider is at 500.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know how I can tell you the HGIG isn't working correctly on the G2 is Forza Horizon 5 on HGIG on the C2. It looked really good and you can tell that it was on, and then when I switched from HGIG to dynamic tone mapping on, like it didn't do too much difference, right? Like it got brighter but in the wrong areas. But
Right.
the whole image was almost the same other than that. But if I do it on the G2 now, it's like dynamic tone mapping just brightens up the whole entire image. Like you could tell there was no actual tone mapping going on with HGIG. Like, I don't know, it just feels broken.
That's because it is.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, so SD, I know in your living room setting, and if you want it brighter, that's kind of the main advantage to the G2 is when you use dynamic tone mapping in Cinema Home, it lets it push itself more, and then that's where it separates from the other ones. If you put it in Cinema, dynamic tone mapping off, it's probably not going to be a whole lot different.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I think like with dynamic tone mapping off, the G2 gets pretty bright still.
Oh yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
brighter.
It's good.
It's just for that bright room TV, when you do use dynamic tone mapping, that's where it definitely separates from the other ones.
Right. And dynamic tone mapping on real content is way better than game mode dynamic tone mapping. Like, way better. From what I experienced, anyway.
Oh, and I don't know if it was this new update or if it's the next update, but I saw that the update for the whole precision IQ thing is coming. So
Okay, good.
that's not actually in it yet.
That'd be fun to try.
All right, gotta end it, but thank everybody for coming. Upcoming videos or community posts, whatever. If anyone has suggestions or ideas of how we should handle future reviews, just let us know. We take all the feedback into consideration. I saw someone earlier ask about where the member streams are. When you become a member by going to the page and click on join, or on a video underneath, it'll say join. Then that's how you get access to the streams that get moved to members only once they end. And then, let's see, I have an X95K settings video I'm working on, and then some stuff for the G2. And then, KG, are you streaming tomorrow because
Friday?
of the ratings thing is happening Friday, so I don't know if you were streaming Friday or not.
Yeah, well, I don't know yet. We'll see. Maybe. I think Saturday is when I'm gonna do my S95B versus S95B, but I might hold like a normal stream tomorrow. If that's the case, I'll keep everybody updated.
Okay. All right, and then let's see, Matt, Sunday stream.
Ooh, maybe. I keep having jobs on Sunday mornings, so I think this Sunday I'm free.
I'll be driving, but I can join on phone. Oh, that's the other thing. In the next 2 days, I'll be getting a new vehicle. Maybe I'll have to do a video, but
yeah.
Congrats. I'll do something on Sunday. I definitely want to talk. I really want to talk perceptually matching and like white points some more, but every time we try and get everybody together, like D-Nice, Sammy, all these guys, I know Stacy still wants to do something. It seems like no one's schedule fits, so I might just end up doing one on my own and letting you kind of dial in. But I think it's an important topic.
Yeah. You want?
Yeah. So Brandon set this up with ratings, and so him, FOMO. I'm gonna try and join on my phone because I'll be working at the time. I believe it's 5 p.m. Friday Eastern. Two of the people from ratings will be on stream, going over how they can improve things, because of the issue being processing is like the biggest difference with TVs now. And how do you put a number on processing, or how do you test the processing the way that they test things? So we'll just be giving them some live feedback and everyone just kind of working together. I have some ideas. I have some ideas for new way to make patterns that I want to work with Stacy Spears about. But I also want to see what's going to be on the new Spears and Munzel disc, because I believe some of my ideas are already on there. So we'll see. So yeah, that stream will be happening Friday. I pretty busy this weekend and with car stuff, so my content will be slow, but I do have the X95K settings video coming. All right, so thank you all again for coming. I'm gonna go ahead and end it, and we'll probably see you tomorrow on KG's channel.
Later, guys.
Have a good night.